Alright guys, M-Tech Guy here, and we're out here nice and early this morning. You can see all that frost vaporising off the roof of the M5 there. Now the sun's shining. Rightio, so today we're going to be taking a look at differential noise on the E60 M5. Now this seems to be a very common concern that I see come up quite frequently. And what sort of noise are we talking about? Well, it's a kind of scraping, grinding noise from the rear end, from the rear axle when you're making tight turns, especially 90-degree turns. And you might notice this more when the vehicle's cold before it's warmed up properly. And it almost sounds like the tyres are scraping on the rear arches, but it's not that, it's the differential. Now if you own one of these vehicles and you've experienced this noise, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so what is this noise exactly? Well, these E60 M5s and pretty much every M car before these had an old school type limited slip differential with clutch plates inside of there. Now what can happen if you leave the car sitting around for quite some time? All that differential oil will drain out of the clutch plates and then it'll become dry and they'll really grab when you're making tight turns and it'll make that grinding, scrubbing noise. Now the factory fill oil has a limited slip additive in it, so what that does, as well as your gear oil in there, that you got that limited slip additive to let them clutch plates slip a tiny bit so they're not just biting up so much, but you do want a little bit of bite so the limited slip can do its thing. But what can happen over time is the gear oil, the limited slip additive, can break down, and of course these differentials being vented to atmosphere, they can also absorb moisture, so over time the gear oil is going to break down, it's going to become contaminated and it's going to become less effective. And then them clutch plates are going to become a little bit drier, they're not going to be slipping as much as they should do, and that's when you get that noise in the rear end. So what's the solution for this? Well, 9 times out of 10 a gear oil change will do the trick, but if you are hearing a banging noise from the rear end or it's whining, then it's probably time for a differential rebuild. Now the clutch plates in the rear end will wear over time, they normally last about 100,000 miles, probably a little bit beyond that, but most of the time they do start wearing out. It won't necessarily cause you any noise, but what you'll find is the differential won't work as effective as it should do. But anyway, in most cases, if you are getting that grinding, scraping, scrubbing noise from the rear end, a rear differential oil change will pretty much fix it. Now the very nature of these limited slip diffs, they will make a little bit of noise even when they are working 100%, and from what I can gather this must have frightened a few new owners when these cars first came out, because in North America they brought out a different differential oil that had a friction modified booster in it which allowed them clutch plates to slip even more, so it wasn't making any noise. But to be fair, you do want a little bit of bite there, which will make a little bit of noise for your differential to work effectively. So it's really a balancing act, and it's really, what do you want? Do you want to use the normal oil with the limited slip additive in it that's going to make your differential mostly quiet most of the time, but your limited slip will work effectively? Or do you want a bit more excessive slip that's going to make it run quietly? Well then you'd go for the differential oil with the friction modified booster in it. Now me, I'm used to this kind of thing, I'm used to this noise. I've had a lot of old Chevys when I was much younger and they had the posi traction rear ends in them, very similar setup to these differentials. Used to get an additive that you'd put in with a separate bottle with them ones, but they still worked effectively. So today I'm going to be carrying out an oil change on the differential, and we're going to be using just the regular rear differential oil that's recommended for these vehicles with the limited slip additive inside of it. Now unfortunately I was unable to pick up the noise with my camera when I took the car out previously, but nonetheless it's been 4 years since I last changed the differential oil, so we'll get it changed out today and we'll see if it quietens things down a bit. Alright, let's get the car jacked up, we'll get it on 4 jack stands nice and level, and we'll get that gear oil changed out. So that's the car all jacked up on axle stands nice and level. Alright, so let's take a look at what we're going to be using today for the differential oil change. So we've got the BMW E60 W140. It takes about 1.1, 1.2 litres. So being 1 litre bottles, you're going to need 2 of them. And then we have the drain plugs and the fill plug also. Now these come with the sealing O-ring. You can't buy the O-rings separate for some reason, but anyhow they're relatively cheap these, so whatever, just chuck a couple of new ones in. And to be able to get the new fluid into the differential, I'm going to be using my little pump here. It's just a cheap plastic pump that screws on the top of the bottle to dispense the oil into the differential. You can pick these up relatively cheap, you'll find them on eBay, Amazon or wherever. Rightio, let's get into it. Okay, so if we take a look at the differential here, you can see that lower plug there's the drain plug, and one a bit further up there, that's the fill plug. So we'll crack the fill plug first just to make sure we're not going to have any trouble getting that out before we drain the fluid. So I'll crack that open, and then we'll pull the drain plug right out, drain all the old fluid out. Right, so fill plug first, just to crack it open. We're going to have to reach over the top of the exhaust here because there's not much room to get a ratchet in right in front of it. There you go. Remove that fill plug while that's draining. Right, so that's just about all the oil out of there now. So now we can put our new drain plug in there, tighten it up. Now, ready to fill the differential with the fresh oil. We're just going to keep filling it until we see a dribble coming out of the fill hole. So the bottom of the fill hole is your full level line, if you like. Alright, that's the first bottle empty. I'll move on to the second bottle now. It takes just over a litre, so we should be just about there now. We're just waiting for that steady, thin stream to start dribbling out that fill plug hole. There we go. That's full now. And now we can reinstall the fill plug. Tighten that one up. There we go. So what I'll do is just give the differential a bit of a clean down now, get rid of that residual little dribble of oil, and we'll get the car back down on four wheels. I'm going to take it for a drive, and it's best to find an empty parking lot and do some large figure of eights just to really work that new fluid right around them clutch plates. And once we've done that and it's all nice and warm all the way through all them clutch plates, I shall test it on some sharp 90-degree turns, see if there's any noise, and then what I'll do is I'll wait until the following day when it's all cooled down, and we'll try it from cold also and just compare it to the little bit of noise that I was getting. With it being fresh fluid, that should quieten things down now, up to the extent that you can do with a proper limited slip diff. Alright guys, so we got the differential all changed out, and I took the car for a good run, made sure all that new oil got right the way through them clutch plates with a few tight turns. Now what I found before the car had properly warmed up, I heard a tiny little bit of noise from the rear end just on a tight right turn. It was hardly anything though, but since then it's been super quiet. Haven't heard a peep out the differential, so that new fluid really made a difference. It was worth changing it out there. Like I say, the old fluid was about 4 years old, so it obviously started to break down in that time. So a differential oil change has certainly done it good. Right, if you found the video interesting or useful, don't forget to give it a like, and make sure you go and check out the rest of my YouTube channel for more BMW E60 M5 content. Consider subscribing if that's your cup of tea. I'm MTech Guy. Thanks a lot for watching.